You say letting go of control doesn't mean you don't take the actions today. You do need to take certain actions today. Look, data and research has been very subjectively received in this market. A lot of people believe in it blindly, which is okay. It does, but I think data is very biased.
That you think today, in this generation, in this time, has been gone missing that was really amazing in the past that existed but doesn't anymore?
Patience. There's no right answer. It's a very open, because some people approach it from how, some people approach it from why, and some people approach it from what.
First of all, welcome, Mr. Samad. It's really an honor to actually have, since I known about you through a mutual connection of us, Murtaza. He told me that you're the advertising quote unquote emperor, and I know that relates somehow to a certain terminology that is very very much as part of your work. Um, knowing more about you, we had a good discussion when we met last time, and you've had a significant journey all the way. Like, you've grown up in Saudi. I mean, if I try to even summarize your journey, it's very hard for someone like me to even do this. But grew up all your life in Saudi Arabia, advertising history completely, all the way from the newspaper era to the digital space and modern advertising that we are in, and especially like certain company names, Al Raji, Bold, all these names, Ogilvy. I mean, there are names that we're very much, who are familiar to the advertising sector, are familiar to this. So I want to know, of course, and the way I structure this podcast is a past, present, and future.
Interesting. Thank you.
And so I want to know that. So first of all, thank you for giving us the time and welcome.
Thank you for having me over. It's a very humble experience, be it from Murtada, be it from you. Had a very good sit down. And I think the essence is always good conversations. That's where people get into ideas, people meet different personalities, get different perspectives. You asked me, just a quick intro for me. Yes, I'm an Indian kid that grew up in Riyadh, born in 1979 in the famous Shamisi Hospital, where uh, I think the journey has been, I was very fortunate. My parents, I used to have huge families here. I had a lot of cousins, I had uncles, and there was a nice functional system going on. Being Indian, we grew up, we studied in the Indian school, but I think the interactions after the school, after I went and did engineering from India, again, a decision that I had no idea about what to do, but was guided to it. And I don't blame anyone for that. But I think we were in a time when we grew up, it was not, Atari was the in thing. The
Nintendo,
Yeah,
Atari,
not
that
even
time.
Nintendo. Atari was the thing, and I remember
Tetris was
Tetris. Yeah,
all the
so
rage.
gaming was the first step of into the whole world of entertainment, if you want to call it, in
Mm.
Saudi, and we're talking 80s. And from there on, I think it was Channel One, Channel Two.
The embassy
It's
era of
the not even
Space Tune.
yeah. There was not even Space Tune. It's way before that. There was only one Arabic channel, one English channel, and surprisingly, we were into cartoons, so both channels worked.
Oh,
And I think that was the exposure, I think, of learning Arabic. I mean, there are so many shows that I think I connect to, which is uh, Captain Majid, yes, Bashar, Al Jazeera.
Tash Matash.
Rashmatash was
I
even much
have to.
later. I
Have
think
to
we
ask
grew
that.
up in Ramadan. I mean, but Channel One, I think, is my introduction to the Arabic language. I grew up on Saudi football. Obviously, when you grow up in Riyadh, you are, no matter where you're from, football was mad,
It's part of
passion mad.
culture.
It
It's part
was
of society.
absolutely, it was part of the culture. And I think all of that really helped me because growing up, understanding that, um, we were in a stage in Saudi back then where things were opening up for everyone, not for just people growing up from Indians or Pakistanis or any expatriate in Saudi, but even for Saudis. I think that period or that generation is probably the uh, stage where youth started coming into the picture. We're not youth anymore, but at that time it was the introduction of the media world. It was the introduction to the creativity. I think the city, the country, the people, I know we are today almost 68, 65, or 70 plus youth driven as a from a
It's the
local.
majority under 30.
But I think this youth, the passion I saw back then from gaming, and then the journey of the gaming consoles. You mentioned Nintendo
Yeah.
and Sega
And then after PS1
and the
came, and
PS1. And
the
actually,
world kept changing in
I mean, I
these
was a PC gamer, but
evolutions.
I think I gave up when I did play on PS2 or 3 the last time, and it was Mortal Kombat or I think Call of Duty.
We
But
had Tekken, we had
yeah, we
GTA
had Tekken and
always,
GTA, and
Need for Speed.
I think I kind of stopped there.
Hmm.
But yeah, so coming to the industry, how I entered the industry, which was advertising, was quite by chance. I had no idea. Coming back, completing my engineering degree, and working for 3 months. And my father was an engineer in one of the ministries, and he helped me get a job for 3 months. But when I got into it, I realized something doesn't feel right. And it's not something that is my aptitude. And it's not something I see me doing for a long term thing. Creativity is such a interesting word, and we don't realize in what format it comes. And I think that by that time, being exposed to the gaming aspect or to the television media, or what was there, we were already being trained subconsciously
Subconsciously.
for this world to see how it works. And I think you can give the West the credit here because they created all the things that you see, from which things
The
came out,
platforms.
characters, movies, styles, whatever you want to call it. That's where they evolved from. So yeah, I grew up all my life in Riyadh. Went to India for like 5 years for the university for my engineering. Came back happily, and then I was leaving home and going to Jeddah to explore my adventure in a by chance interview that was set up by a BTL agency that was working with the likes of Saudi, Safi Danon. It used to be called DMS, with a very interesting family, which is the Hamiduddin family. But that was the start, and I think that's where I realized they made me realize that you are capable of being a part of something else and being part of difference. Because I ended up learning the basics when we saw talk about setting plans, going for distribution, sampling. How do you print the machines? And then I started with operations, and then I moved into traffic manager, understanding how the creative department, the people and the
It's a very
talents
hectic
work.
job, I would say. The traffic manager has always
It
been the
is.
most grueling job. I would say that's very unthankful.
Yes, but at that time, I think when we grew in the next 4 or 5 years, it was nothing to be unthankful about. That's the learning part. And I think if you're very hungry about learning and you really mean it, because everyone says, yeah, we want to learn. It's
I want to ask something about, like when you were getting into this. What really intrigues me is to know what was your perception about advertising before you got into
no
any of this.
TV ads, commercials.
What was the feeling you would get when you would watch an
I
ad?
thought it was a very short version of short movies or different, and it was always interesting. I mean, I know they call it commercial breaks and people used to run off or whatever. No, but I think we always enjoyed watching ads, whatever it was,
Any
whether
ad
it
you
was the
remember?
jingle from back then. No, there are. I think you remember the toothpaste or the goodie ads or the jingles, and
I do.
there are
I
some
do.
jingles that were very recent. I can't remember, or it was I think the Ariels and the Surf or whatever we had back then.
Yeah.
But
With
it's a
the
good question. The
refrigerators.
refrigerator. Yeah, I mean, it was
Yeah.
all. I think at that time it was all very commodity driven
Very product
advertising,
based.
very product based, and it was more. I think it was a short term thing. I think is the Saudi market at that time was all about being out there. So whether you are in a newspaper, whether you're on TV, but being on TV was the big thing, and then being on a billboard was the next big thing.
And now that's an interesting question that comes up until we're in act one of your story, which is
Yeah,
the past. And we're seeing you getting inspired, going through this tangent of this world that is advertising at that era. Um, could you at that time pinpoint a common thread among every single advertising, regardless of the platform it was on? Newspaper, TV, whatever. What was the common thread of Saudi's advertising vision?
I think it's not just the Saudi. I think the whole advertising industry at that time was working on similar concepts. The model of the agencies was done, and people used to make fun and jokes about this, but we have to get the client to do a TV commercial because
Hmm.
that was the ultimate thing, which would, one, put something on the credentials, two, make money,
It was high value.
high value, yes. And because I think your media outlets were the TVs at the time. So, internet, I think before the internet, I think even when the internet came, but social media was not a thing. So, I remember when we used to do the whole shoot, the ads for the newspapers, magazines were all done during the shoot. So it was all done in that. And that was the big project. And that's one of the reasons why I remember it was the biggest accounts, and still are actually, are where the banks or the telecoms, and people would turn for that. And I think I was very fortunate in my proper advertising experience to be a part of the launch of Mobile at the time and to work on that. And I think nothing trained me better for this than, like, I remember my first month and I spent 4 nights in a row in the office without leaving, which I think was a very good boot camp train. And the clients at that time, I think, were with a different mindset. And there was a lot of, I wouldn't call it bullish, but a lot of, they knew what they wanted. And going to present to a client back then was a very nerve wracking job because you were being watched by all the C suites, especially for a telecom, and everyone having their opinion, and a mix of local but mostly international experts who've done this 100 times. And I remember the agencies used to get grilled, and yet we would get it at the end of the day. But that whole process was very nerve wracking, and it was something that I felt like I don't know how long we can make up or catch up, stay with this and learn to live with this. Eventually, you get used to it, and it becomes a bit thrilling. But it was, I think, that experience, and even today when I see the youth, when they go in for a production, is when they feel like, oh, now we're in advertising
Yeah,
business.
I feel everyone's getting very excited.
Yeah.
I do relate to everything you're saying a bit more technically than possibly maybe others would. Being from an advertising background myself, I've gone through this feeling, and this feeling of when you're on a production set, whether you're doing for product or service, or where whoever is in the front, the talents here, the clients, of course, sitting in the back watching the monitor. I mean, that has to somehow happen, and to get that feeling of the first take, you say sound rolling, camera rolling, scene one, take one, action, and it's right there you begin.
Filmmaking is such an exciting project to be a part of.
And I really
Yeah.
want to know in detail as we go along in our conversation about how that kind of is a part or a huge element, I would say, in my opinion, a very huge element when it comes to advertising that many people, I guess, don't give it too much credit for
Mm.
nowadays. But to get to that later, I do want to ask, for example, since I mean, we of course have a huge age difference. Um, the newspaper era, I do want to personally, I think many viewers also, I think today the time has gone so quickly and so fast and is evolving so quickly that we're kind of forgetting about how the past used to work. How was the newspaper era?
Oh, it wasn't digital, it was physical. And I think even today, if you ask the generation from that time, they love holding a newspaper or a magazine and the experience of feeling the paper and going
I
through
want
it.
to know. I want to know
Well,
what
it
people
started
loved so
from
much
even
in
the
that
color
part.
formats were like, I remember Arab News was the only thing in Saudi Gazette, but the green touch of the Arab News, it's so nostalgic.
It is.
And then the color part came much later. It wasn't colored before.
Yeah.
So people who were a part of that, look, I think being on a newspaper is at that time, from a guy from an advertising point of view, to push it, because that whole process was a very tiresome process, because you were dealing with media outlets and you had to rush everything at the time, and it was always last minute. But when it was out there, and then you had to make sure you got the size right and everything fit in the right way, half page, quarter pages,
You do the
etc.
cutouts of
Which,
everything.
yeah, and then the whole media plan booking used to be done on the basis of, yeah, we are going to get 20-second or 30-second page. I don't know. People used to go all through that. 13.
Hmm.
I mean, we're talking, Arab news was not such a big thing. We're talking about Sharq al Awsat. We're talking about the local ones that were there, Okaz, Al Yom. I mean, these were local newspapers. I remember when we used to take the bills, the invoices for these newspapers, so they needed physical proof in the telecom side. So we used to take a whole trolley with like piled up newspapers with the ads on the pages to the office, deliver it to the finance team with proof of where the ads were and
And
everything.
that in today's day and age is called project delivered.
It was project driven. So I mean, it was fun. Not fun. It was, yes, we had to take the trolley as account executives. So I think when they say you work your way up, you've done the nitty gritties. I think back then you had to be willing to do everything. As cliched as this sounds, but roll up your sleeves. So I'm still rolling up my sleeves till date today. But it was something that it really showed that you wanted to learn. And I think I remember being in a supermarket because the client asked me to take pictures of products. It was a dairy client. And I had to see the market distribution in each market. And I was caught because it was not aligned. When they're not allowed, they were like, yeah, this can't be. And then they take it out and then they take you to the market. And that was an experience on its own. But I did it. And we had to do it on our own, not because just the client asked you, because you learned it. Because that taught me a lot. It taught me the retail space, how to look at that. Um, I think back then, the expertise if you were lucky and you had the right people to work with, not only within your industry, even as a client, they knew how to groom you right. They knew how to make you think. I remember one of the heads back then, Mr. George Laham. He sat me down in Ogilvy. This was my third year, and he started questioning me of because our job as client servicing was brief, send the brief, do research, etc. He was the first person to tell me think. I'm like, okay, this is the brief. He's like, okay, what are you doing? So it's too executional, the work as a client servicing. And the first time he told me think, it was about a credit card for Rachi or something. And he was like, why are we doing this? What is the card doing? And he grilled me for like 20 minutes. He didn't have to, but he gave me that time and he kind of pushed me into thinking critically, thinking analytically, thinking about the product, thinking about the aspect, thinking about why, what we're doing. And after that, he was like, good luck. And he went away. And I remember that was the first time I started thinking, apart from the creative bling, there is science in this industry. A science that doesn't get the right share, the right voice, or the attention. And maybe it wasn't relevant because it was all about being out there at the time. But now, as things get complicated, I mean, we're talking about the transition. I don't know if you want to discuss that later. I think the science has been more relevant than anything. Even the marketing landscape, I think the way it was done before versus how it's done today. Who remembers the four P's or the C's and everything? They still hold value, but the way you apply them, the way you think about them, and it has to be, let's say, have to be adapt, flexible, agile. It's a very different mindset now versus back then.
So, in terms of experience, like, we're, of course, from you, we're hearing such big names. You've been involved in Mobile, um, Al Rajhi, so many big names that it's even sometimes very hard to wrap my head around. So that you've worked in so many different types of situations. My biggest question comes down to is, so you've seen the advertising of that era, the past. You've seen it now. You are seeing it where it's going ahead. But I mean, personally, I've always wanted to ask for people like you, was advertising ever done from the heart, or was it always a hybrid situation between the heart and the mind? Was it always a mind situation back then? And how is it now?
I think it's an interesting question, but it depends. It depends on the client that you work with. It depends on you individually. It depends on the ecosystem that you're in with your own company and what they believe and how they want to do it. Was it from the heart? I think creative people, especially the creative team, doesn't know to work any other way. Heart precedes mind, anything else. They just work with the heart. And that's where sometimes you miss on logic. And there's nothing wrong with that. But yes, the work always was interesting. What used to happen, I think, if I look into it, it used to be a short-term game. It was more about getting yourself out there. It was more advertising driven. I think today's industry is not advertising driven, it's more marketing driven. And there is a lot more than just advertising.
Can you tell me the difference between these two
Wow, very
terms?
interesting. I always ask this question when I meet young people. Advertising is part of marketing. It's one of the most important elements of marketing, and people don't get the difference. Uh, Marketing is getting you to bond with a product, and that includes experience. That exclude it's the whole value chain that you're talking about. It includes where you are visibility, frequency. It talks about your research that's done. It talks about how you're going to complement the whole image of the. That's where the brand comes in. Or the reputation. That's where PR comes in. This is all that
Showcasing
falls.
yourself in market,
A lot of these fall under the term marketing.
overarching term.
And I love when I ask people because I meet a lot of young kids and I love asking them this question: what do you understand by marketing? And for me, there's no right answer. It's a very open because some people approach it from how, some people approach it from why, and some people approach it from what. And again, none of them are right, but it kind of gives you the mindset of how they see marketing.
There are three or more gateways
Yes,
to the
the
same thing.
gateways. And I think the idea is same. I mean, I love the idea that yes, marketing is the function that gets you to bond and advocate for the product and whichever way. So, and that starts with a journey. And I always, so that's why before marketing, I like to believe in the word brand, which is something that a lot of people love talking about. And I think they love
We've
talking
seen a
about,
lot about branding.
yeah, I think the
Every
most,
other chain is becoming a brand.
the most annoying term that's come out now is, yeah, it's not a logo. Yeah, I think everyone knows it's not a logo. I think a lot of people knew it's not just a
At best,
logo.
some people might understand it's a color palette or
Yeah,
if
yeah.
it's
So it's fine. Enjoy it. Enjoy the color part if that's what you think about it. But even that color has some science and logic to it. Because how did you come up? And that's where the fun part comes in. Because I always, any company, we say the brand, and it's in its early stages. I compare it to a baby being born. And when it's born, what do? You give it a name. What's the next step after you give it a name? Now the baby is starting to, you start teaching its values and stuff, how to speak. That's tonality. Once it learns how to speak, now it's going to be interacting in different places. So how is it going to speak to different people? Different way to a father, different way to a mother, different way
and
to
what
a
is
sibling.
it gonna wear?
So the whole thing, it's literally, if you compare a journey of a baby from the time it's born to the time it goes to a school till it grows up, is the science of the regular commercial brand that you're talking about. That's how you need to think of what values you're going to give. How is it going to shape up and look? Is it going to follow the trends? Is it going to say something that is different? Because at the end of the day, that kid or that brand wants to be different.
It has a perspective.
It has a perspective as well. So that's, I think, I think we complicate it too much. I've always seen marketing as something that is a part of our daily lives, our
People
behaviors.
are trying to make it into some kind of a formula, some kind of a science that this equals this and then this and that means the best
Yeah, but
this,
they forget the most important thing.
the
We are
purpose.
brands. We ourselves are brands.
People stop thinking about the humanity behind it.
And if you compare the rise of social media and what social media, it's given voice to who? The people. So the people now have a voice. Therefore, the brands have a voice. So you need to kind of connect the dots, see what it's going. And people, this is where they fail to realize. When you're on social media and you're talking, it's like entering a new room. What do you want to do? What do you want to talk about? If I'm introducing myself to a group of people who have come somewhere and I'm meeting in a party, what do you do? Do you start off with, "Hi, I'm so and so. This is where I work. This is what I do. This is what
This is who I
what my
am.
company does. This is if my car, my blah, my blah." Immediately you lose interest. Versus if you go in and you're like, "Hi, I'm Sarmad. Oh, by the way, I grew up in Saudi. And I used to watch this. By the way, man, my life was fun, and the school I went to and blah blah blah. I met so and so. I got interested in this career. Now, I mean, it's been fun. It's been that anything and everything. People love knowing about your personal story more about what you do. Now, when they choose and they listen to your story, if they like who you are, then they come and ask, by the way, what do you do?
Mm,
Because now you've gotten their attention and they're hooked on to what you are thinking of. So if they believe in that and they believe in choosing to communicate with you or interact with you, now you can start, oh yeah, by the way, I work here. Oh, that's interesting. Now I have interest in listening to what you have to talk about because you've gotten me as a person, as who you are, from the values, from your life, from your storytelling, whatever it is, I connected. And how do you connect is by not talk. It's a very old example, man. We used to hear this all the time. We used to have door-to-door salesmen. What was the first thing we did? Thank you, not interested. If the guy
I
was
think we
knocking,
still do it
and we
now.
still do it. It's because the guy is selling it in in your face.
It's too obtrusive.
And it's I think that for it doesn't people don't like to be told what to do. They like to choose what to do.
And the personal space remains a personal space.
Absolutely. Don't come into my personal space until I allow you to come to my
Yeah.
personal
Until
space.
I want it, until I request it.
And that's where I think people in social media, that's why influencers are popular. That's why some brands get it right. And that's why I think our industry, if you want to bring it back to a full circle, our industry has amazing copywriters that are young kids from this country that grew up here, that understand the country. They speak the language, they speak the humor. And these young people are global citizens.
They
They
have the
have
pulse on
seen,
society.
they have the pulse on society, they have the pulse on the world. These are the same kids that grew up watching the same shows me and you did, or a kid in States or in UK or in Canada. They grew up watching Friends, they grew up watching Fraser, they grew up watching Seinfeld. They are familiar with the sense of humor, the style. But guess what? The best thing about them is they are as global as they want to be, but they are so close to the culture that they believe in. And that's something that they don't compromise.
It's a line they can easily jump back and
And I
forth
think
into.
this is what attracts the West. That, okay, they're global, they're more open than we thought they would. But at the same time, there's something different. They're not letting go of what they believe in, be it the girls, the guys. And this is something that I believe even the parents are proud of.
The hybrid approach
The
that
hybrid
the
approach.
new generations take.
I think that's the global approach and the right approach. And I think that's what makes Saudi itself stand out in front of
Unique.
the everything else.
So now I want to know, like, since now we're kind of getting into the phase of the present, um, we've seen your experience now based on everything you've told and everything that anyone can read about you. I mean, there's a lot to learn here. There is a lot of source of knowledge, at least for me. I'm very much selfishly benefiting from you. And for me, what I want to ask is, during all of this time, like you're here in Saudi, you're growing up here, from the era of the past, coming into the new modern advertising world we live in today. All of this stuff is happening. Where is the Where's the family? Where is the father seeing his son go from this direction to this, to this, to this? What was his perception about your journey?
I'm a bit, are you talking about m- me as a father or are you talking about as
About
an
your father.
industry?
About your
My
father.
father?
Your father
Oh,
seeing his son basically just grow
oh,
into this side. Was he expecting
oh,
you to go into this
my dad was
direction?
a fun person. I mean, I mean, I'm glad you brought it up. So he never understood. And I think till date, he never understands what I do. I remember he was a part of a conversation because, yeah, he grew up in an engineering background. There was no such thing as a marketing, at the time, from especially for people from the subcontinent.
Doctor, engineer.
Yeah, I mean, we know the doctor engineer thing. I was a part of it, a victim of it, but I got out of it before I could get into it longer. But they knew there is something called marketing. They were not familiar. They knew TV commercials.
Do you try to explain them?
I
Like,
did, and the reaction I got from that was my dad was sitting in a group of people, friends, his friends, And they asked him, yeah, so what does he do? He's like, I don't know. He sells butter and oil somewhere. And I just looked at him. I'm like, okay, that works. That's fine. At least he got
It's
something right.
understandable.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting it. And the funny thing is, this was very early. And he went back to India and he was like, okay, I think it's time you explain what you do. And I think what I tried explaining to him back then, almost 20 plus years back, versus now, I would probably try to explain advertising to him. But now I'm trying to explain brand and the aspect of how we create it, what we have to do. And it's not. I think that kind of, in a very weird way, explains where the market is heading and where my mind is also heading on the importance of what used to matter back then and what makes a difference now. So, yeah, I mean, for him, he still gets his media knowledge through OTT, TV, online stuff. That's the TV.
Do you think he still understands exactly the way
I
you want
I
him to?
think he kind of gets it, but I think what he doesn't understand is the importance of how and what we do and what we create.
The
And because
process.
it's now, if you look at the industry, and we've seen results in the past, it's built nations, it's destroyed nations. It definitely is building this nation. And I think the
Agreed.
best example of I think the world's envy right now is the brand called 2030, Vision 2030. You can't see it, you can't, you don't know what it is.
But
But
it's there.
but
You
people
feel
believe
it.
in it, people follow it. Exactly, they believe in it. And if you believe in something and you follow it, you automatically get a following of
And I think
like-minded
it's the
individuals.
perfect example of today's day and age where a a marketing or a brand that is so entwined into the culture and society of a country on a national level that is straight from the heart, whereas I think the logic and the science right now doesn't really matter. It really does matter is everyone is under one unity, just running towards a certain goal in mind.
I think there is different levels of there is what gets you interested in a brand. One, it's relatability. You feel it because everyone else feels it. I mean, we were all feeling it together, and everyone relates to it. Then there is something called the suspense, which has been the winning formula for any movie, and you should know
What's going
this.
to happen?
What's going to happen? And I think that's what's been the glue for any storytelling.
The clock is ticking.
I mean, people want to know how will it end, how will it go.
That timer until
Yeah.
2030
So I think that's one of the
suspense.
reasons, and these are some, and there are more. But uh, if you want to learn what brand is, you just need to understand what is it that the vision did and how did it do it right. And I think you will figure out the science yourselves because
Interesting.
I don't know whether it was by chance or whether it was a thought of, but it is probably the best example of how a brand should create itself, sustain itself, and communicate itself. So it didn't only get local admiration or support, it got a global admiration and support. You never heard of visions before this. Now, Oman has a vision, Kuwait has a vision, Bahrain, everyone has a vision. And we're talking about even outside. There are countries that are believing in the power of what happens when you create vision. So I think that's one of the best ones that I can give examples of. What I feel it's a very brand driven market. When I talk brand, again, people need to understand. We were having this talk the other day as well. In the industry, ever since, it's always been a mix of art and science. And how do you play the balance game? So, maybe to answer the question that you earlier asked me, back then there was more art, less science. Doesn't mean the science didn't exist. No, we had strategists, we had marketeers, and everyone was doing it. But the importance was never on that. It was always in the end of how does it look? Does it look nice? Will people like it on TV? Will people like it on the newspaper? Does the talent, blah, blah. So it was a lot about the moment. But now people have started realizing there is a long term aspect to how things work.
Data driven.
Data is one aspect of it. It drives, it gives you a reference point. There's a huge data. Look, data and research has been very subjectively received in this market. A lot of people believe in it blindly, which is okay. It does. But I think data is very biased. Data can give you a lot. It can, but one thing it does give you is a direction. And I think everyone needs somewhere to start with. And if it wasn't for data, a lot of things would not have happened, including AI that we have today.
And that's an interesting subject I will touch to.
Yes. So I think the importance of data is there. But again, every marketeer absorbs it in a very different way on how they see it, how they want to utilize it, and how they want to champion it in a very different way. And again, yes, the market is digitally led. There is digital marketing. There are ads. TV doesn't happen anymore, so you rely on your online presence, etc. So I think the science has changed on that front.
And that leads me to, I think, an interesting subject that a person like you is in the perfect position to answer. What is it that you think today, in this generation, in this time, has been gone missing that was really amazing in the past that existed but doesn't anymore?
Patience, and that's a very generic thing to say, but
And I do want to ask very like not only to the advertising sector, but
yeah,
as generally in
yeah.
terms of society and life.
Okay, so me and you grew up in a time where if you wanted to watch your favorite show, you had to wait for a Thursday, Friday, Sunday, one
Yes.
week.
Not many options.
If you wanted to have your favorite meal, back then it was Pizza Hut for us. You had to wait for the
Me
weekend.
too.
If you had to get a cab, you had to wait and hope one would pass by. I think
Indeed.
you know where I'm going with this. We were subconsciously trained to be patient and to wait. And hence, that small pause or that period, it lets you absorb knowledge. It lets you calculate possibilities of what can happen with your outcomes, with your behaviors, with your decisions, etc. Versus today, where decision making time is literally a flip away. So when you're talking about flipping or just like choosing, you have so much choice. You have so much, I mean, sorry, no time to decide. The generation gap, this is where it's happening because it's fast. How does this dictate to your overall life approach? I know my kids
Mhm.
cannot wait. The favorite program they want to watch online, the food they want to order, delivery, the cab they want, 2 minutes there. They already know they're going to get it. They already know. So self entitlement comes in. The struggle, the wait, the learning, there's no time for it to learn.
Assurities are given.
They are learning by deciding. There's a positive thing to it because, good or bad, they move accordingly. But that leads to different issues and different because I think, I'm not sure, but you probably end up making a lot more wronger decisions than the right decisions or impulsive decisions.
Because everything's a very short amount of time.
Exactly. So I think that's how you see content. That's how you see a lot of things in the lifestyle of the people, and that's a job. I have 3 months to go with it. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I'm not going to stay around. I need to see growth now, the results now, the excitement now. So how are you going to balance those expectations? I mean, for us, when we go through it, I always used to tell people there is no trade-off for experience. So I grew in 25 years with certain leaps and bounds to a certain position. I kid you not, they do it in half the time now, if not less. Because the growth, they're hungry for the growth so they can get to the end point of whatever it is that they're looking at.
So now people have stopped kind of enjoying the journey and rather be like, I need to
That's
get to the destination
absolutely,
quickly.
that's one of the things. The second thing is they're missing out on a valuable experience that teaches you a lot more
The
than
little
any other
bumps on the
books.
road.
If they don't know how to be resilient, how will they learn what's going to happen in the future? Because
Everything's very comfort zone based.
I truly believe having resilience is one of the most important skills or inbuilt characteristics that need to be there. Because, like it or not, you are going to face disappointment. Like it or not, you are going to fail. Like it or not, everything is going to crumble at one stage in your life. I always believed in something, which is, when you go to the hospital and you see a guy is fighting for his life unconscious in a coma, and the
The
machine,
monitor
the
has
life,
that.
yeah, and it keeps showing you the up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually, funny enough, Um, I'll send you a film link. I literally wrote a dialogue that showcases that concept. I kid you not. I made this film 2 years ago,
Okay.
and I was actually playing a ghost in the film. I was playing an actor in my own film, and there was a character in front of me who was very depressive about life, and I wrote this dialogue, and it kind of came in my head just a day before the shoot happened for that scene. And I kid you not, 2 years before, you exactly saying this, I had this observation because a friend of mine was in the hospital, and I went there and I saw the monitor of his heartbeat go up and down, and I felt that that isn't that life. The presence of life is up and down. We go through life with ups and downs. If people are asking for so-called assurity, stability, prediction, that's a flat line and that's death.
Absolutely. 100%.
So I wrote that into the film.
So you know where I was going with this. It's a very interesting.
Exactly
You
clicked
know,
me, and I had to tell you
I
that.
was talking to a friend today, and there was a very good discussion. What do you look for in life? What are you trying to search or find? And I think, let me hear your answer, and then let me, maybe it matches what the majority of the people are looking for, or what how they would choose to answer.
And from my perspective, I feel that I think everyone in their lives is just looking for some sort of, at least there are many answers to this, but in
Yes.
my answer would be is meaning.
What does that give you? Give me the emotion that
Meaning,
it leads to.
meaning gives me
Calm.
calm.
And what does
I'm
calm
looking
lead?
for calmness.
Perfect. So you're kind of going into the direction.
Yeah,
Maximum, I think they did this question, and everyone is answer is trying to find happiness, and that's an interesting state. And then there was a question asked, and there was a monk who answered this, and he said, "I look for peace,"
calmness.
which is calmness, what you mentioned.
Very interesting.
So why? He's like, well, because happiness has a quick end, whereas peace is the thing that eventually, even in your happiness, you're trying to find that peace, that calmness. And I'm a true believer in there is no such thing as, I keep talking about this long term thinking because I don't think I have learned, I'm learning. I'm not great, I'm getting better. It's an ongoing process.
Self improvement is an
And
evolution.
it's, yes. So this is something on the similar thing. Happiness, quick question, and it was again quoted from the thing. 10 years back, if you wanted something, you had a wish list and you have it today.
Yeah,
But if you imagine how you felt when you put it in your wish list 10 years back versus how you feel about it today, I think it's very different.
it is.
So it doesn't make you happy anymore. You're filled with that.
I relate to that same feeling, I feel, and I think you agree with me on this. We're very much close in terms of the frequencies on this
Yeah.
part. Is I remember when my dad used to get me a CD. Do you know the Times of Tariq video?
Yes. Yes.
And all those CD
Yes.
shops
Yes.
and
Yes.
everything, and even in Saudi when it came
Yes.
out, I think it was in Ulaya or something. There was a shop, and
Al Baljoon.
yeah, and they would
Yes.
have these movies, the pirated ones and
Yeah.
everything. And we used to go there, and a lot of us expats, like we were in that. Whenever we had VCRs turned into CD players now, and now people would be like, okay, can I watch it on my laptop now that I have a CD-ROM there as well? All of these kind of shifts when they were happening, and I remember that feeling of my dad taking me to buy a movie. He said, "We're gonna watch it tonight. We're gonna be in our home. We're gonna watch it on that big screen TV I just got a week ago. We're gonna get whatever we have to get from outside and eat at home. We're gonna have a family time, and we're gonna enjoy that movie together." If I wanted to play a game, I would have to either get a really good result. I would have to achieve. I would have to justify getting that.
Mm.
And I would have to earn it.
Mm.
It was not given.
That was earned.
It was earned. There
Yes.
was a process behind it to get to that feeling. And
Mm.
once you got it, then it was like there was a lot of time that got I had to get through to get me to that milestone. It doesn't exist anymore.
I think it gave you more validation. It gave you more a feeling of achievement when you work for something and you get it, right? So right now, yeah, I mean, we were talking about the similar thing about happiness. I loved your movie thing. Imagine we were very excited when we had no cinema, and now it's there, nobody cares,
Yeah.
right? So there is no lifeline on the aspect of happiness. It's gonna keep coming and going back to the theory of happiness and sadness, and it's fine. It's all good. But how is the generation understanding and dissecting this and realizing this? Because we keep making fun of this whole subject. Yes, mental health is very important. Sometimes mental health is starting to give me mental health. It's for the wrong reasons. People are using it as a crutch, not as a tool. So, uh, finding, I think a lot of the young generation has become very curious about finding the purpose and the meaning of life now. And I love talking to young people. I've spoken to a lot in the past, especially the Saudi youth is super passionate, super ambitious, super driven, and very way ahead of what we used to be back then. So it's very nice to explore where their mind is at. I mean, a lot of them I meet already have an end goal that they've decided what they want to do, which is so good to hear. I mean, they are already set on an intention. And I've had the opportunity to work with a few who set goals and actually followed up on them. So that's the other important thing. I think, again, it's rare, but I think the families, I still believe I've seen families that make sure their kids go through the right process. Maybe the durations are short, but they make them start from bottom up and all the way up so that they earn
The value of
the
their
value of winning and achieving what
winning.
they're going with. So that's a good thing to look at. I mean, it's I look. There has been a lot of pursuit of happiness and pursuit of success and trying to understand. And I think when you are in this industry, especially this industry, it's become very challenging for a lot of people. And it's mostly because of the frustrations. But I don't think it's just the ad industry. I think it's the full corporate culture now. I think there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of expectations, cultures that you have to fight. I know this is all about in the corporate culture, people are focusing. I remember back then there was no such thing as internal communication, culture, marketing. I like to use the word called culture marketing because you're talking to internal stakeholders and they're very important. But if you look at the change that happened when the vision came in and I don't know how many people remember how work used to be done 20 years back versus now within all governmental, non-governmental, private institutions. There is a nice, healthy competition race, but it's not with each other, it's within themselves. I think they realize there is a time that they have to get things done. That's the plus side of not being patient, I guess, for them. But they are on a mission for themselves, on the purpose, whatever they're trying to do. And I've seen this in different industries. And it's so good to find people, whether it's in the area of wildlife, medical, engineering, any field, any industry, and including the industry in the advertising. I think they are trying. There is this is what the vision provided. We need to prove we are there, we are leading, and they're showing it, and they're winning it, and
Are
they're
gonna make it
achieving it,
happen.
and they're going to make it happen. And I think being part of this, for me especially, for someone who grew up here, when saw Riyadh when there was nothing, to see where it's going now, and to see the people, the transition in the mindset, and the friendliness, and the openness, and the globalization that they're exhibiting, not only in their actions but in their behaviors as well. It's super satisfying. It's nice to see. You feel like, okay, this is happening in my house, and I can see this also.
So I want to do a little exercise with
Yeah,
you.
sure,
So, of course, I'm gonna do it this way. Is I'm gonna say a couple of things,
sure.
and I want like a
First thing that comes to my mind.
first two words that come into your mind to try and now I would say I'm actually exercising your advertising mind as well and picking it off as well. So
Let's have
again,
fun.
I'm
Let's give it
being
a shot.
selfish when it comes to learning from you on this one.
No, no, sure, let's give it
But
a shot.
I would definitely like throw you a bunch of random things and kind of see where the first one or two words come out about your perception on it.
Sure.
Corporate culture.
Too rigid,
Today's young generation,
unpredictable.
Gen Zs,
Never understood the difference between any of those gens.
um, mental health,
Abused and used in the wrong direction.
the advertising sector today,
Whew. Sitting at an edge where they don't know what's going to happen and how it's going to happen.
AI,
Too much excitement, less application.
social media.
It's just a channel.
Instagram,
If you're too curious and want to know everything about everything and everyone, sure.
TikTok,
Ugh. People who love following trends.
Snapchat,
Made only for Saudi.
Twitter,
What's that? It
Twitter,
used to be X.
X. Now is X. Yeah.
It's the news channel now. The new news way of watching news.
Family time.
Super important. And I think uncompromisable now. And including me. I think we still need to find a way of how we can balance because we live in a time where the excitement for one kills the excitement for the other. And then sometimes it's too late to realize the importance of both. So I think mental health is the problem that comes in when you cannot balance this versus that.
And that is why there is a perception of the marketing and advertising sector is is that people, what the perception I think is somewhat, there's a lot of news about the world that is the sector, is that people don't have much time to themselves anymore. People tend to be more in the office than in their homes. People, even if away in their homes, tend to always have a laptop in front of them working from home. Overtime, I think, is pretty rare. Um, the the expectation from someone who's working in the advertising sector is very high in a very short amount of time. There is a lot of there is I in my opinion, I've also heard about, which I've grabbed in terms of what I've heard, is that there is a lot of problems regarding responsibility management, um, hierarchy confusion, appointment of those responsibilities, and when something fails, then there is this blame game situation that happens. Do you think? I mean, you can agree to disagree if how much of this is true, how much of this is not. I want to have your perception about all of this, about the misconceptions or actual
I
conceptions
think
about the
what
advertising
you've
sector.
described right now is pretty much a corporate culture thing. It's with everywhere. It's not about just the advertising. The advertising, I think there is people are smart enough to now make transitions into. Let's keep one thing in mind. In the last 4 years, I've realized there really aren't any more crazy deadlines or crazy timings. It's there, expectations over work on the weekends. I think we've blown it out of proportion based on past experiences and the legend. But I think the youth now knows very well how to balance it. I think they know how to organize and structure things better to an extent. The corporate culture, I think, depending on which industry you're in, and especially if you're in, okay, the marketing is a health industry or the hospital is always going to be a hospital. What you might do is probably structure and organize the doctors a little better.
And that's why my question is,
Yeah.
why is it so related to the marketing and
So
advertising
I,
sector
I
in
think
conversations?
the more, s- well, it's the pace. It's the pace of, th- there was nothing for the brands to aspire to back in, let's say, early 2000s, up 90s. They were doing their thing. It was more of a race before the competition makes it. I think what's changed now is we're all following the giant brand 2030, and there are deadlines, and it's not it's not external competition or any other things. It's more, we don't want to not make it. And I think the fear that's pushing people into the same situation, but with more hunger and more willing to, I mean, they're willing to compromise that situation versus before it was, what am I going to do? It's just a product, it's just a thing. What's going to happen? The competition is going
And
to
in
be
this
amazing.
kind of race, how many, like nowadays, how much of a percentage in that ratio, due to this fast paced kind of competition race that comes into advertising agencies with other agencies, with other brands to other brands, nowadays, how many wrong decisions get made due to this rushed pacing nowadays?
Define the result of the wrong decision. What are we talking about? A miscommunicated TV ad, a miscommunicated.
A wrong research point, a wrong copywriting placement with the wrong ad, maybe something that where a client's requirements were not
No,
kept in check.
no. I think it's very less because the people who are measuring it are measuring it again on a different thing. Within the internal advertising ecosystem, it's still a lot about content. And I think when it comes to making content, they've all nailed it. So they know who they're going to, and those entities know the language, the script, the output, whatever it is that they're needing. So there's no such thing as a wrong or a mistake. It's just a matter of quality, whether it was better, good, or not. So it's like a good show or a not so good show.
How many overpromises are made in this sector so
Oh,
far?
all the time,
All the
all
time?
the time.
Still in
It
communications
was a bad
department
habit.
still?
It was a bad habit that started way early in the 80s or 70s, ever since the ad industry started, from the originators to the people who then transitioned it, then to the people here. And I think it's a bad habit that people thought. I think it comes from scarcity of well, we might lose it. So people overpromise, and I think this is happening in regardless of advertising. I think it's happening in the consultancies. It's happening.
Again, it's corporate culture.
It's become corporate culture. If I'm working for a client, I have to please the client, and if that's the situation where you're trying to please, then comes the
And
overpromising.
suddenly the account management starts talking
Oh,
like the client.
I like when you mentioned the client servicing because we really my focus and my passion has been to grow a different mindset within the what we used to call the client servicing, which was a very delivery mode, people pleasing, serving attitude, hence the word client servicing. And I felt that the talent coming there was maybe doing a good job of meeting deadlines and delivering, but there was no self development, there was no confidence, there was no acquiring the science, the knowledge, which, if they did, would give them more confidence as an advisor rather than a delivery person. And that comes from a mindset of how you treat it. So if they feel they're going to service the client, then they're always going to be what you just said before: overpromise, rush around, panic, chaos,
Tight
tight
deadlines,
deadlines, unhappy culture, unhappy people,
people leaving.
eventually high turnover. So I, uh, I'm very proud and happy when you talk about achievement. Culture is built by the people. I mean, we are touching on the aspect of culture. I think in my last 7 years and where I was working with board before, it was very important, and a few people maintained that culture of being heard. And maybe it's easy to do in an organization with under 100 people or maybe 50, which is typically the agency size, because it's not so difficult to talk to someone and say how they're doing. And I used to make it a point to make sure I know what's happening in their lives to the extent where they felt comfortable discussing if they had job offers or job interviews, which was for me a huge achievement where they feel comfortable and safe to talk about
That
that.
you're not going to use that against them.
But they trust you. And that's what it comes to, again, your leadership, your understanding of I'm giving you that safe environment so you can feel free to grow, experiment, ask, fail. And that's something that you don't get a lot because now I think, especially when they grow bigger, culture takes a hit only because there is a lot of, yeah, but you have to, because this is the culture, because you're not good, you're out. And I think at this point, everyone's scared of losing their job. So there's no learning. There is satisfying, there is pleasing, there is overpromising. It's trying to deliver, not losing a client. If I lose this client, I lose my job. If you kind of make them feel secure about what they're trying to do and what they're uh, that you really do care about their growth. I have noticed the performance. There was a very challenging target that was given to me. I'm not the one doing it, it's the team. If you provide that support, that confidence, they did it. And it surprised me how they did it. But I think it all goes from giving them that space, that ambience, that environment. And it doesn't matter which country, who you are, wherever you are, whichever is. I think humanity is humanity, humans are humans.
We all feel the same emotions.
Emotional understanding, emotional intelligence is probably one of the most important characteristics to understand if you want to work. Literally, just work doesn't mean client, agency, whatever. Because if you know and if you can understand and put yourself in the shoes of the other person, how they feel, how they behave, under what circumstances, it's fun. It's really funny how communication solves so many misunderstandings. Someone has to just, because at the point where you are about to lose it or you're angry, or when there is an argument and your instinct to win the argument takes over, which is a short term win. And if you can learn to maneuver, thinking about it doesn't matter who's right or wrong, but you don't let the other guy feel like he lost. There's a big difference. That develops trust, that develops relationship, that develops long term. So that's something I truly believed in. And we were discussing this and you were talking about it. And something I read something, but I kind of derived it. It's not something I came up with. It's called return on relationship.
I really wanted to know this
So
ROR situation.
I was very fortunate.
Instead of ROI, we're talking
Yeah. It
ROR,
was
return on
someone.
relationships.
This came from experience of applying it, not realizing it, and then benefiting from it, and then summing it up and realizing what worked and why it worked. So the way I used to work with when I was in my past experience in the agency with I never called them clients. I literally, if I could work with a friend, I would work with a friend. But I developed organic relationships, and I spent time with them in their offices, providing the same thing, but being there as a how I would be for another friend,
A human.
human. But I would say friends. So sometimes that included wasting the whole day doing nothing. But I think the time I spent with them, and they took me in because they knew I grew up here. I came from the culture. I loved Saudi football. I knew Saudi football. So they knew the interest and the understanding is there. So they would open up, they would talk. And I still remember the first client I went to, and not my first, but somewhere in the middle for when I had joined the new place. And he came to me I was an account director, and he was like, yeah, I have a problem with the place, your company, and they've been doing blah blah blah, and they've now, and he went on, and then I was like, you should have fired us. And he started smiling. He's like, okay, I expected you to fight back and protect it. And for me, it was like, I just got here. You're frustrated. I understand. Go ahead. But I'm not going to change. It's just organic. There are frustrations. Let's see. It'll take time. He's like, okay, that's something I'm not used to because people come and
Very
defend,
interesting.
and it's not something I'm
Very
used to being.
interesting.
I had my speech after that ready. So I think that's where he dropped the guard and he felt like he could talk to me and he would get an honest, straightforward, genuine reply. And that's what makes a big difference when you're trying to develop that relationship. It's not about, they need to feel this guy is going to be, no matter what, is going to be very honest, very straightforward, and he cares. The caring part comes in when you actually deliver something that you were trying to help him solve a problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's the approach when you form the relationships. But for that, you need to spend time. You need to understand. And a lot of this is my only issue where I have that we become very practical, especially the youth is very practical. And they feel like spending time over at a client's place to meet their people to sit. It's more waste of time. They'd probably accomplish a lot more if they were back home in the office with the team or doing something else, but that's a waste of time. And I truly believe, again, from experience, that is the best bonding relationship thing that you could do. Now, where am I going with this is I spent a lot of time with people, especially with Raji, with a lot of my clients.
And I want to go through that. I want to go through very interestingly in order of, so how did you get into Ogilvy? How did you get through with Raji to actually eventually become in-house? And then it was bold.
uh,
So let's start from that order.
okay,
I
that's
want
a
to know
very
about
difficult
it.
journey to talk about. I mean, for me, I believe I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky because I think at every stage, as an Indian guy familiar with Arabic, doesn't speak it by choice, but I mean, I understand it a lot. But it was for me, first, I mean, the language for me to be in that ecosystem. I grew up watching TV. I understand the language, but I never wanted to speak it the wrong way or in the way where I felt it would be offensive. So I stuck to the English language. Doing that in a client servicing business aspect, interacting with clients who are specifically with that, I still managed to create relationships surprisingly.
And many people have the perception it's not possible.
No, it's possible. It's absolutely possible. Just be genuine. And I think you'll manage it. But I was in Ogilvy, there was someone who gave me the opportunity because I don't know, whatever it was that they felt that I had or whatever it was, but they gave me the opportunity.
And I want to like now go through this very briefly in terms of as a very interesting categorized structure. Is so I want to ask about Ogilvy. I'll ask like two or three categories,
Sure.
and I want to have your answer to this. So, if for the viewers who are watching, or for someone who wants to learn, if you can, in without using advertising terms,
Sure.
this is the challenge.
Mm.
Without using any advertising terms for the mass audience, if you wanted to tell them what were you doing there, what would you tell? Without using any advertising terminology,
In Ogilvy
what was your
or
job
in
in
the
Ogilvy?
solving challenges.
Then who were the kind of people you were dealing with?
Uh, it's one of the most, again, I think this goes back into one of the factors into the return on relationship. Your return on relationship isn't just with clients. And when you look back 20 years later, what happened? It's you are looking for respect or people to turn back to you or trust you or remember you in a positive way. And I've been very humbled recently in the last few years to get this. It's also for the people that work with you in the agency. So your challenge is not only building relationships out there, but even with the people internally. And for me, I was very close to the to the people help helping the office, or as I used to call them, the first impressions director, the
Interesting.
receptionist. That's the other
Interesting.
term.
Oh, first impressions director.
And it didn't
Okay.
matter. I mean, I think people see through you if you are genuine and if you really do care. And that goes up to you. Again, for me, I organically care about people and knowing what's happening around them. So my questions of knowing if they felt comfortable talking about happinesses, sadnesses, things happening in their life. Some people have it. They come to you and they talk to you about it. They feel comfortable talking to you about it.
And how many years did you work in Ogilvy?
In Ogilvy, I worked for that was around. So I worked for 2.5 years, then moved out. And then eventually, when it was acquired again, the other company, it came back to Ogilvy. So 5 years, I
And
think.
you were
6.
handling Al Raji in Ogilvy.
I spent 9 years, 8 years with Raji, surprisingly, with the agency side, and then on as a client side with them for 2 years. And I think a lot of my learning has happened there.
And that's what I want to ask. When you were leaving Ogilvy, right till the last day, when the last day came and you were leaving, did you think at that day, okay, I'm going out, starting the next phase in my life? Did you ask yourself that, okay,
Listen, I'm going to tell you something very funny. I know where you're
this
going with this.
I
Yeah, yeah.
I
I'll
think
tell
you
you. I'll
know.
tell you what's going to be funny in this. In the last 20 years, when I started in the first 10 years, every 2 years I wanted to leave this industry.
Very interesting.
Okay. And I
Very
think
interesting.
I always kept this short. And every person in the agency always has a goal that I want to work on the client side. I'm done with this. And you will notice if you haven't left it in the first 2 years, you're doomed. You're going to be with it. Even when I went to the client side, it's somehow fate or whatever the circumstances, the industry pulled me back. And when I was again in the place where I was working for 7 years in Bold, this was a local entity. Uh, I enjoyed it, but I felt like this was going to be my last this industry, ad industry, or communications industry experience. Weirdly enough, it's not. And now it's moved on again and it's going into Emperor. So I am enjoying the aspect, but now different. It's giving me back in a different way. I am, we all love to create. Creating is one of the most addictive things that you can get if you are an innovator or if you're in that direction. So you need to find ways of creating, whether you're recreating yourself, the industry, or the work, or some people call it reinventing, some people call it innovating, some people
Steve
whatever it
Jobs
is.
used to call it stealing.
Yeah, stealing, whatever. It's but the excitement of me going to work and feeling good about it in a nice way. That's what I think. As long as you keep getting that, and I think that's one of the big beautiful things about this industry. It's not the same thing every day. It's a different thing
Different
every challenge,
challenge,
every project, every different challenge. Yes, different problems to solve, different people to meet,
different relationships
different
to talk
relationships
with.
to make, and different relationships to build on. So yeah, I mean, to answer your the relationships, I think what I realized, this is not just Ogilvy. This was even YNR. This is even before when I started with DMS. If you form organic relationships, not work relationships, not corporate relationships, those are okay. The amount of interest whenever I changed my job or I was in a different place, and because you built that last image of trust and that friendship, they come back to you. And when they come and tell in your new current place, I'm here because of him, I don't think there's anything more humbling than feeling that, okay, so what I did before was the right thing to do. And that's what you want to teach the new kids coming up on what you want to build. Because all of those were done on short-term basis, but it ended up on a long-term result. I didn't know that it would impact on that. When I started receiving this kind of a reaction, keep in mind, for me, it's always very humbling in this industry, which is out of blood. People come and ask me, how do you manage? Right? It's nothing. It's just how you create who you are and the persona. That is the whole challenge. ROR is about long term because you're here to not benefit yourself, the company, the people. No, it's something that will benefit you as a whole, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. When you grow these organic relationships, I've seen financial results, I've seen psychological results, I've seen growth in different directions, and it happens.
Less people leaving.
And it has affected. I truly believe if you are good in forming these, you build a culture. You build a culture. People are happy. People are happy. People are growing. People are growing.
We're all growing.
You see magic happen, and been a part of that. I'm very fortunate to see some of the good work and magic happening in that.
I mean, magic is something that I feel that time to time just kind of reminds you, as we talked about this last time we met, was, you know, magic really does happen when you let life unfold.
Absolutely.
And as you said, when you stopped trying to control or micromanage or get in the way of things, even if it was intentional or unintentional, whether it was that subconscious, that you had to just kind of take a step back and let it unravel, let it unfold, let it make its mistakes if it had to.
It's such an interesting concept, but I now try to think whether it is something that happens with age, or is it something because I know at an early stage, no, I was absolutely the opposite, the chaotic, the I want to learn, I want to be
The
hungry,
rebellious,
the rebellious, I want to achieve. And there's no harm in trying to want to achieve.
and I want to do it fast, and I
Yes, I
want to
want to
keep
do it different. I
going.
want to do it my way. It's fine. I think at this stage, after doing everything and being everything, but yes, sometimes when we try to control the past or the future, we lose the focus on present. I think it's good. There is a small confusion in when you say letting go of control. Doesn't mean you don't take the actions today. You do need to take certain actions today. But those actions are in the, you take them with the idea of doing it in the right way, the way it has to be done for today, for this thing on hand. And I think if you keep it that way to from day to day, you will realize and you leave it to him. And he really does, but you have to let it go because the funny thing about the challenging thing, not the funny thing, is you don't know whether you're letting go or not. Because does that mean I stop desiring? Does that mean I don't stop thinking or asking? Or no, no, you set intentions, you ask, you put goals, you put challenges, and quietly you act on them as you want. I think this was a very interesting session I had with someone where I'm just going to discuss this because this is something I felt really did benefit. There are levels of awareness, you might call it within spirituality or within psychology or whatever. And someone told me the first level of awareness is when you realize what you're living through is a game. Second level of awareness is when you realize, oh, these are the characters and this is how the game works. And the third one is when you realize this is a game, and guess what? I really do have an, I can create an impact. I can create the story. I can create the storyline that I want.
My existence has influence.
Yes. And when I asked the person, yeah, well, how do you do that? That's very interesting. Being a gamer, and I thought, oh, I can program and do it.
Atari just comes on board.
And yeah, so I mean, the answer I got was very confusing for me because she was like, nothing. And I was like, what is that supposed to mean? She's like, nothing. And then I was asked to not think of anything for like 30 seconds. For 10 seconds, I couldn't do it. She's like, okay, try 30. I'm like, no way. So if we can find the calmness in our head, because we are very chaotic, our nervous system is rewired in a very different way. If we let quietness, calmness, stillness, basically, what does that do? It creates patience. If you let things happen, if you watch things unfold, you'll be surprised how much is going to turn into your favor. And that calmness is going to have an impact on how you see actions, behavior, people, etc.
The very thing that's reduced,
That's
as we
reduced.
talked
And
about.
as times go, we know we are chaotic. Yes, we want results. Yes, but
We want it now through
that's
an app.
and that's where the losing control part comes in. Letting go of control is accepting, and if you reach that stage where something wrong has happened and you are actually excited, oh my god, this is going to give me something new and different, and I can't wait for that because I'm sure this was something meant to be for something, and I was either protected. I know we used to hear this when our parents say, everything happens for the best,
Yeah.
and it's a cliched thing.
I mean, still to this day.
Yeah, and we still do. But I think people, if they really do enjoy, if they want to see certain things unfold, and they really let it happen in that way, they will see something. Because I truly believe today you can create the outcomes and things that you want, but you have to play that
And hence, we
really,
just said the magic then
that
happens.
magic that happens. Absolutely.
So, Mr. Samad, first of all, I have to say that so far it's been a very interesting conversation where we've kind of gone through the past, we've kind of gotten to a lot of perspectives about the present, about how things are working, about your perception about it. Now, of course, I want to go towards the last stage, which is the future. I want
The
to
sad end or the happy end.
it's I mean, as we talked about earlier, that there is no good and bad, there is always shades of gray.
Yeah.
And in terms of shades of gray, without really putting it into good or bad, but rather um, perception and reality, and what is it really happening now. I do want to ask a couple of questions that I just want one answers. I want the people to think.
Mm.
I don't want to spoon feed any of the answers on anything. If anything, I want people to think. And one major question that in that one liner, maybe probably that mystery we've talked about, that is
Mm.
so encouraging for people to I look forward to. I think people would go in their own journeys, whoever's watching, to get to these answers themselves. But in your perception, a couple of questions I have in mind, and one of them is, where do you think the marketing advertising industry of Saudi Arabia is now headed towards? What kind of changes are you expecting to see?
How about I form it with another like question? Maybe I don't know if that will work or not, but let me see.
Let's give it a go.
You asked me where do I see the future of the marketing going? Where do you see the future of this generation, this youth, this movement going? Where do you see technology going? Where do you see the financial situation going? I think these cover three important factors that decide the future of where this industry is going. Where do you see globalization? Where do you see the influence, the diversity, the mix of the industry now that you see a lot of different nationalities playing a different role and different flavors and different medias coming in? So, where do you see the international celebrities playing their role in the globalization of the media that's coming out of Saudi?
A lot of answers formed in the way of questions. I like this way.
Yeah.
I like this way. I wanna keep
So
continuing with
let's see
this
if we
way.
can keep it up.
Okay. So another question comes in my head is, where do you see the youth going of Saudi Arabia towards beyond Vision 2030?
Where do you see the youth traveling to outside of Saudi? Where do you see the youth contributing on a local scale, on a global scale? Where do you see a youth in terms of social intelligence, in terms of emotional intelligence, in terms of ambition? Where do you see the youth in terms of hunger, tolerance, acceptance, overall mindedness? Do you think this youth is agile? Do you think this youth is adaptable? Do you think this youth is challenging, is up to challenging status quo, changing the norm? I think we've had some answers already as a part of this.
Interesting. I like this way. I like this way. Where do you see the skilled expat community, as what kind of a way it's going to be a part of all of this moving ahead?
Does the expat have entitlements? Does the expat have expectations from people, from institutions, from lawmakers? Does the expat feel free, empowered, uh, given the similar privileges? Does the expat see itself being respected? Does the expat see this as one of the best times and opportunities in the world? Is the expat adventurous, ambitious? I think we covered ambitious. Willing to take the risk, take the sacrifices to build something big and different? Does the expat think they miss Dubai, but they don't want to miss Saudi? Does the expat think it can be a part of history in the making?
Very, very interesting Very interesting. And the last one that I think is for me right now most important with you in this conversation. Where does Mr. Samad as a character in life? Where does he see himself moving ahead?
Does Sarmad want to get uncomfortable and explore new horizons? Do I think I need to stick to what I believe and continue contributing in the capacity that I believe I should? Do I believe there is still a lot more within the industry that needs to be established or created in the similar industry or something different? Do I believe that if you put your mind to it and you take on challenges, goals, ambitions, the impossible can become the possible? Do I believe I'm in the right place at the right time for the right people?
Thank you.
Mhm.
First of all, really, really, this has been very insightful, been a real learning experience. Knowing from someone who has seen so much evolution in front of his eyes while still having gone through so much evolution in their own lives. It's really been a very humbling and a very, I would say, very fun, interesting conversation with a lot
Oh,
more to think about.
it was fun, to be honest with you. This was my first experience and I'm hoping, I mean, there's always space out there for doing things, being heard for the right people, the ones who want to hear you. But if you're giving them what they're providing, what they're looking for, they are hungry. They do listen. They do act. So yeah, I mean, look, it's a very cliched and old thing. You sow what you reap what you sow, right? Or you whatever you contribute, whatever you do. It's not very complicated. I think every spirituality, religion, everyone teaches you to be fair, be just, be become what you expect, right? These are the kind of advices and things that I will always listen to. I think there's no there's nothing wrong, there's nothing unfair if you do it with a clean heart, with this right intention. And I like I mentioned before, genuinely trying to make a difference, genuinely trying to do something, it gives you different kind of a satisfaction, different kind of results. And even if it's for your self purpose, it's not about a philanthropy or something else.
True.
People even do philanthropy for the wrong reasons now. It's a formality. But if you do work with the right intention, I think at the end of the day, it's not about the people, it's not about the validations, it's not about the awards. Awards, you don't need external validation because this is something very interesting I just shared. Okay, so you meet three people. There are three kinds of your personality faces three kind of things. There is a personality of you which faces regular outside people. That's the face that you show. Then there is a second face, the one that you show to your close ones and your loved ones. If you want to know your truest face, that's the one you show only to yourself,
When you're alone.
either alone or when you talk to yourself. If that face and you can talk and be in sync with what you're thinking and how you're approaching and you're happy with it, then again, great things happen.
I guess it's an indication of such people when they're very happy when they spend time with themselves, when they're not looking to spend their time where they need to have other people.
Absolutely. And I think it's also about just believing in what they are. Self worth, self value, it's very important. I think somewhere down the line, with circumstances, with influences, you kind of start doubting things. You start questioning things, rather than things in yourself and everything. And that's where you need your own confidence and your value to be strong. I know these are all cliched things that we've heard 100 times before in a different way. Honestly, a lot of them do make sense, but you got to live it to believe it.
And just for myself, selfishly, I mean, if any viewer has gotten to this point in our conversation, uh, I mean, people already know at this point that I'm very selfish in this
Ah,
conversation to learn. So I'm going to ask something that is just strictly for myself. And if anyone wants to take anything, they might.
hit
So,
me.
well, what kind of an advice do you have for a person like me, based on the bit of the interactions we have had up to this point?
I think we we are all trying to find what is it, that one thing that connects the dots and brings everything to life. And I think for us, you need to set your own limit of what it is that's going to be, that's going to satisfy your hunger and your limit. And I think maybe you're closer than you think you are, but I believe you're on the right path. But I think it's time for you to clear the noise, find what it is, because it's a common thing between a lot of us. We always fall into this, we are interested in so many things and we get good at so many things. But what is that one thing that we can do forever and that will make us happy? That's the true purpose that we're trying to identify. Something that really touches the DNA of and the core of what you are, and that touches everything else. And that is what the pursuit is all about. If we can find that, it's been a long time. I think I'm close to it, but I haven't identified it for myself. Once you do that, I think the rest of everything else will fall in. And other than that, I think the sky is the limit. And this is all for you, actually. It's not, but identify the sky that you are looking at. That's it.
Thank you, honestly, once again. I'm gonna keep this advice close to my pocket right here. Just right here.
Pleasure, man.
No,
I'm humbled. And thank you very much for the opportunity. This
no,
was
really, really. Again, thank you, thank you.